Greetings once more, my fellow board game enthusiasts, and welcome to the grand finale of the Aeon's End Legacy of Gravehold campaign. First things first, I'm happy to report that, as was revealed at the end of the battle music video, we have some no longer missing mages to mark off our board. In particular, Ohat and Uljamor have finally made it back to the surface, most likely recently rescued by Jigar after being stuck in the cavern tunnels for years. We also get confirmation that another Wave 2 mage, Remnant, has survived the fall, along with the two Wave 1 mages, Lash and Reeve, though Reeve seems to have lost some hair, melanin and scar over her right eye, since last we saw her. On the plus side, she did gain a nifty blade to replace the left arm she cut off. Anyways, this means that we have now accounted for more than half of the 15 missing mages we started out with. That's a pretty good survival rate considering the world we're in. Oh, and the other two reinforcements, Reth and Geru, aren't really noteworthy, as we already previously established that Geru was alive when discussing Indira's lore, and Reth is simply an Azirian mage. So with that discussion concluded, let's get back to the epic finale. When last we left our mages, their glorious clash had come to a sudden halt as darkness engulfed the battlefield. A massive void portal, big enough to blot out the very sun, had opened in the skies above them. And from it, a familiar robed figure slowly descended. Brahma and Jana both quickly rallied their mages back to them, whilst again accusing each other of being responsible for the Bishop of Scrolls' creation. Enraged at their continued conflict, the Bishop of Scrolls shouted at them in fury as she ripped her mask off and let it fall unceremoniously to the ground. The mages were all shocked to see that the Bishop of Scrolls was in fact. Well, we can actually work it out for ourselves at this point. Based on the Bishop of Scrolls and Bishop Return's background lore, we know she has to be a Wave 1 or 2 mage, as she knew all the people and events which occurred during that time period. Additionally, from the Mother of Rust's lore, we know that this Nameless created itself in the Bishop's image when she encountered it in the void, and given that Mother of Rust has a face, it's clear the Bishop wasn't wearing her mask at that point. The reason this is relevant is that it gives us a sense of Bishop's facial features and hairstyle. Next, after accounting for all the mages who we now know are alive and well, this leaves us with 6 possible candidates: Theodraxa, Jian, Mist, Sparrow, Gex, and Quilius. I'll start by eliminating Quilius, as she has scars all over the right side of her body which doesn't show up on the Mother of Rust. Likewise, Gex is also out for her many piercings. Sparrow and Jian is also out as they have short hair and their personalities simply don't match the Bishop's at all. Theodraxa's features were pretty close, until I remembered she has a claw for a hand, which doesn't match the Mother of Rust, so I'm still leaning towards her being the Grief Weaver instead. And then there was one. The mage who has been foreshadowed most of all. A mage who is known to be a frequent traveler of the void. A mage who got possessed by a being from the void which gave her powerful new magical abilities. A mage who, despite having made it to the surface with all the rest, has recently disappeared for no apparent reason. A mage named Mist. It was as if a wave of silence and disbelief radiated throughout the battlefield. Brahma and Jana could not but stare at the face of their once close companion. Mist's expression slowly softened into a wide smile, while her eyes spiraled in a purple haze. Having regained her unnatural cheerfulness, Mist next spoke with a mixture of appreciation and disdain. As if telling a story, she spoke of how in the past Brahma had always been proud of her ability to hop into the void to slay the Nameless minions. Yet after Zaxos caused the fall of Old Gravehold, Brahma started condemning all those who had been touched by the void. They were suddenly dangerous and untrustworthy. Not wanting to risk hurting her fellow mages like Zaxos, while still doing her best to keep them safe using her void powers, Mist arrived at what appeared to be a logical conclusion. She would exile herself, live in the void, and kill the Nameless before they could even reach New Gravehold. She would become just another happy sacrifice so everyone could continue living their happy lives. However, the mages started living such carefree lives that they began fighting amongst themselves. Thus Mist decided to once again take it upon herself to resolve this. And she would do so by becoming the villain. A villain so great and powerful that the mages would have no choice but to unite together against her. She would attempt to destroy the world, and whoever remained in the ashes of her destruction would have to create a true utopia to ensure that the current tragedy never repeats. As Mist spoke, she raised her arm towards the massive void in the sky. One by one, pieces of the Nameless who had been wreaking havoc on the world emerged. Mist was the one who had recruited them all from the start to signal the coming apocalypse, which the mages ignored. She was the one who called them to her when the mages were defeated in battle, and gathered their remains when the mages had won. The wings of the Fate Shepherd, the hands of the Grief Weaver, the Rust Superior's armor, the chest of bone, the chains of myth, and lastly the heart of the Mother of Rust. These pieces were to be merged together by Mist into the ultimate Void Beast. It was a fate each and every mage knew they had to stop at all costs, for the ultimate Nameless would truly be their annihilation. Unfortunately, my dear viewers, this was not a battle the mages could win. They had fought twice against the bishop and lost both times, and that was when they were well rested, and the bishop was not taking the fight seriously at all. Now they were half exhausted from fighting a war amongst themselves, and Mist was going all out. There is no plot armor, there is no power of friendship, and there is no beating Mist, revealed. Try as they might, the mages failed to stop the creation of the ultimate Void Beast. As the monstrosity erupts into life with an earth-shattering roar, Mist burst into laughter at the sight of her victory. However, it was at this very moment of chaos and despair that the smallest of miracles occurred. From across the battlefield, Jana and Brahma locked eyes for an instant. No sounds were spoken, no gestures were made. There was no need. After fighting side by side against horrors for multiple generations, they both knew instinctively what the other was thinking. While leaving it up to the other mages to distract the ultimate Nameless, as one the two leaders ran towards Mist. Arriving almost simultaneously at her flanks, Jana carved glyphs into the air and poured every ounce of her power into them. It was a restraining spell, one that would hold their foe at bay for but a single second. At the same time, Brahma gathered all her energy into her staff, and in that second of freedom, plunged it directly into Mist's heart. Mist sank to her knees. Her spell became undone, and the ultimate Void Beast she created evaporated into dust. Yet Mist was not angry, she did not despair. In her final moments, all Mist could do was stare at her old companions, Jana and Brahma, and ask them what else she could do to help everyone. In response, Brahma assured her that she had helped more than enough. That she could rest. It was as if Mist had waited her whole life to hear those words. Her efforts were not in vain, her life had meaning. As Mist took in these words, the swirling madness which had consumed her slowly drained from her eyes. It was the perfect end to the most perfectly tragic villainess. Or it would have been, if not for a sudden rumbling in the skies above. The massive void portal was still open, shaking violently as it beckoned the coming of countless more Nameless from the void. In shock, Brahma lamented the fact that she did not know how to close void portals, and pleaded with Mist to do it in her stead. Yet it was already too late. Mist's body had gone silent. If only there was someone, anyone, who had as much mastery over void portals as Mist. Someone who had dedicated their entire lives to understanding them. Oh yeah, there is this one minor side character that comes to mind. But surely there must be someone else. Perhaps Yen Magda? No, if she could control void portals, she wouldn't have wandered aimlessly through them for years in Part 2. How about Chu? From Part 5 we know she can travel into the void on her own. Nah, opening a small portal for yourself and closing a giant one aren't even remotely on the same scale. Arachnos could probably do it, if he had a couple of hours to concentrate on it like he did during Part 4. Oh fine. I guess Mr. Walking Calamity can be the hero for once. Approaching from the back, Zaxos emerged. He stated that they can leave it to him. That if all his experience did not prove helpful in a situation such as this, then there would be no point to any of it. After rift jumping a couple of times, Zaxos arrived at the giant portal in the sky. He quickly sank his monstrous claws into its edges and with a mighty scream of rage clapped it shut in a single motion. Back on the ground, he would approach Brahma once more. Zaxos told her that though he would never be able to make up for all the mistakes he made and lives he took, he would still like to try by using his powers to help the people. And that, my friends, brings us to the closing section of this lengthy campaign. To summarize the conclusion, both Brahma and Jana realized how narrow-minded they had been. Jana acknowledged that the void was dangerous enough to infect even the most virtuous amongst them with madness, while Brahma admitted that if not for someone with the knowledge of the void, they would all have perished. Together they agreed to rebuild New Gravehold as a place that welcomed change, while maintaining a realistic society. The lesson being that while it is impossible for everyone to agree on everything, different communities can still help and support one another. And on that wonderful note, I bid you farewell. May we meet again at some point in the future. Bonus lore drop time. Something interesting which I didn't get a chance to mention yet is that throughout the campaign certain nameless attacks can cause our mages to become severed, meaning that they lose their connection to breach magic and essentially become ordinary people. As one can imagine, this is kind of a big deal for them, and each mage has their own unique chapter which details how they react. Some interesting entries I found go as follows. Chu is actually fine with being severed as she can still fight using her claws. This also indicates that losing one's connection to breach magic does not simply undo void corruption. Kadir and Malistar are likewise both fascinated by losing their magic and see it as an opportunity to scientifically steady themselves. From Razra we learn that she and Rip aren't connected via magic but rather through the bond they've shared from being together for years. If either Kel or Ilya becomes severed, the other will automatically become unable to fight as well, seeing as they are tethers who have no experience in wielding breach magic on their own. Thraxer makes an interesting comment on how he had been fighting for hundreds of years and a few days without magic was no big deal. I assume this is another reference to void time dilation, and that as the Knight of Shackles, Thraxer spends centuries in the void while only a couple of years passed in our world. Moving on, some interesting physical changes we see to being cut off from magic come from Lost, Desmodia, and Inko. Lost's flames become weaker, Desmodia loses her spectral arm, and Inko loses his plant armor as we learn that it was a symbiotic flora that lived off his residual ether. Next, if either Takran or Zaxos get severed, we actually get to learn more about Chu. In particular, it shows her wisdom and empathy. She reminds Zaxos that he didn't need any powers, for it was no longer his fight alone. He had already inspired those who came after him to fight for a more tolerant world. Similarly for Takran, she highlighted that he was more than just a breach mage, that even without magic he could be useful to the team in a way unique to him alone. Lastly, I'd like to talk about Yen Magda. When either she or Indira gets severed, Yen mentions that she knew of a mage in the past who could also block the flow of ether, and that it was most likely a temporary condition. Now try as I might, I couldn't figure out which wave 1 or 2 mage Yen was referring to here, and thus I concluded that since no names were mentioned, she could have been talking about the player-created wave 3 mages, who possessed spells like Nerve Jab with the ability to silence minions for a turn. Oh, and on the topic of the Wave 3 mages, we see them closing nameless portals all the time throughout the Legacy campaign. So theoretically, like Zaxos, they could have closed the big void portal which appeared at the end as well, though according to some conversations I've read on the Aeon's End Discord, shortly after their story concluded they got hit by a train or something and canonically died off screen. So now you know why they are never referenced in the lore again. Bonus lore drop time. Oh boy, there are just so many interesting things to cover that I need multiple of these sections to talk about at all. There is one more lore vital item we need to discuss, and that comes from Thraxer's backstory. We learn here that he was actually a person like Brahma who lived in the world that was. What's more, we learn that when the Nameless first appeared, the original wielders of breach magic, the Conclave of Sisters, had been divided on whether they should stay on the surface as their tradition dictated, or flee to Gravehold instead. It was then, in her youth, that Brahma spoke out in favor of abandoning tradition out of necessity. Yet in her old age, Brahma had become the very stagnation she had once fought against. I guess it's true what they say, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Okay, just to end this video on a positive note, let's give a shout out to the amazing artwork of all the cards. I have to say that Ether Ripple looks especially cool as it closely resembles Gilgamesh's Gate of Babylon. And let's not forget about the quirky flavor text, like on Rip Scout. Is it a bird? Is it a plant? No, it's just another rock. Thank you, Rip. I love it.